What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Shogi from Shook Earth Media, and today we're talking about Life is Strange True Colors. I finally got to play this game. I streamed the first little bit of my playthrough, and then for the rest of it, I recorded it all, and I'm going to upload like a highlight reel for you guys that you can check out later, and I'll link it whenever I post it, if I can remember. But yeah, guys, I overall really enjoyed this game. I thought it was a fine installment in the series. I made the mistake in my previous Life is Strange 2 review of doing too much comparisons between Life is Strange, the first game, and the sequel. So I'm going to try to avoid comparing this one from the others. Because I think it should stand on its own, because this is an anthology, and it should be judged on its own merits. So that's what we're going to do with this one. So I will say that I enjoyed this game. Overall, I thought it did a great job at capturing what the Life is Strange series does best, which is that coming of age decision point where people are deciding who they want to be, what kind of life they want to lead, and they use superpowers to get to that point. So I really enjoy that emotional space. It's so palpable. I mean, it's something we all live through. I'm a full-grown adult. I still feel like I'm in this phase. I'm still deciding what my life is going to be like going forward. So it's a very powerful, emotional space to be in. I think this game does a really great job at capturing that. I think they did something really smart in that they added a mystery to this game, where the first game had a mystery in it. The sequels really didn't. This one decided to have a mystery at the heart of it, and I think it was a fine way to push the story forward. And they did a really good job at setting up a supporting cast and having character arcs for all of them, and having Alex interact with all the various supporting cast members in a meaningful way. So I think that in general, the writing is pretty strong. Art direction is really good. There's a lot of attention to detail in these environments, and they were fun to explore. Exploring is pretty much the core of this gameplay here. Oh, and I got my Life is Strange hoodie for anybody who didn't notice. But the exploring the environments and looking at everything, I mean, obviously that's the core gameplay loop, essentially, is just observing everything in the background, pressing the look button, hearing what Alex thinks about it, and interacting with various objects and stuff. The game is short on puzzles, so gameplay-wise, I was hoping for a few more puzzles, but there's only really a couple here and there. But that's really okay. I really think that focusing on the story was the smart thing to do, so I have no qualms about that. I really did enjoy the experience of exploring the environments, highly detailed, like I said. They did an excellent job at facial animations and motion capture in this. So it was very impressive to me. The vocal performances were mostly pretty good, pretty solid. I wouldn't say it's like a master work or anything as far as that goes. There's some technical issues we'll get to later, but in general, the acting was pretty decent, casting was good. But the facial animations really did the heavy lifting, I would say. So I think that they did a really great job with that. So let's just jump right into it and talk about the basic plot. So Alex Chen is our main character, and she and her brother Gabe were in foster care after their mother died and their father left them. So they were raised in foster care and had a troubled youth. And after years of being separated, they are about to reunite as Alex takes the bus to Haven Springs, which is the small town where this takes place. I think they did a really good job at creating an environment that is interesting aesthetically, and it's a beautiful place that you definitely want to live, a kind of idyllic small town. So I really enjoyed the environments there. And they gave us a lot more to explore than they have in previous games. We had pretty much a full city block, and we have a few buildings you can go in, and there's a bit more of freedom of choice in terms of exploration than in previous Life is Strange games. So I really enjoyed being able to explore the environment at various times of day and to be able to see all the hidden things. There's plenty of hidden things to find, so I did enjoy that. But yeah, the first chapter is Alex coming into town, setting up Gabe's brother. I think or Alex's brother Gabe, and they did a really great job making Gabe a likable protagonist. And they set up all the supporting cast. They did a lot of work in that first chapter, so I do appreciate how much they had to set up, and I really appreciate how there was payoffs for pretty much everything that they set up. So I really thought that they did a decent job with that first chapter. And then the rest of the game hinges on the mystery of who's responsible for... Spoiler alert, although it's in the marketing, so I don't know if it's really a spoiler. We'll get into actual spoilers later, but I'll give a warning before that. But at the end of the first chapter, it's in the marketing, like I said. Gabe dies as a result of a mining explosion. Circumstances of what happened to him are the driving forces behind the rest of the game. Like I said, they did a good job setting up this mystery, and it's compelling enough to drive the story forward. So I thought it was a good move overall. I will say the circumstances of his death left a little to be desired for me. I will get into that when we get into the spoiler section. But in general, the emotional crux of the second chapter with the grief and the funeral, this was all stuff that really worked for me. I wasn't really... I liked Gabe. They did a good job of setting him up, but I wasn't like crying when he died or anything like that. But when it came to his funeral, it was very emotional, and dude, if I have a tenth of that funeral and the things people said about him, dude, I would be happy with my life. Yeah, it was, wow, you know, it's amazing to hear everybody say all these nice things about him, so I really think that they did a good job with that. Now, when we get into the investigating and stuff, I feel like they could have done a little more with that, because we spend a lot more time, you know, doing these side story things. Like in chapter 3, we have this role-playing game, this LARP, live-action role-play, that really didn't have that service the story all that much. It was fun. It was an excuse to explore the environment. It was a good time. But, and it does actually end up foreshadowing the ending, so that was cool. But again, it doesn't really do much to service the plot. Chapter 4, we had something similar with this festival, and that had a little bit more to do with the plot in terms of Alex interacting with the supporting cast and deciding what romance she wants to pick, right? I mean, that's, of course, the main event here. So, but in general, like, I still like those segments. I do feel like we could have done without it. There was some flashback stuff in Chapter 5 that I really didn't feel... It felt like the story was dragging on at that point. I wanted it to just get back to present day. Now, Chapter 5 was very short, so if they didn't have that, I don't know what else they would have had instead. But in terms of pacing, it kind of slowed to a crawl. It feels like we didn't need that information they gave us in those flashback scenes. But maybe you guys disagree, and that's fine. But that's just how I felt about it. So these segments, they do add to the story. The LARP and the festival especially, the festival is great. I do feel like the LARP was the bulk of Chapter 3, and it didn't really feel like it added that much to the game overall. It was fun, but, you know, honestly, the gameplay wasn't really all that interesting if you played actual RPGs. So, so that's just how I felt about it. It was cute, though. It was fun. You know, it was get to know you with the characters, and I did appreciate that. So that's all well and good. And then Chapter 5... did a really great job at the climax. After those flashback scenes, they did a great job revealing the mystery, and then the final segment with, you know, the confrontation was really well done, and the epilogue was great, and there's this emotional scene with, you know, with Gabe. I'm not going to spoil anything, but it really got me in my feels, you know, and that's the whole point of the series, so it was a fine send-off for the game. And, you know, I wasn't ready for it to be done. I wanted it to go on more. So, before we get into the spoiler section, I just want to get to technical things. So, technically, this game has some issues. Performance-wise, it feels like it made my graphics card work way harder than a game with this graphic quality really should have. I feel like there's some optimization issues here. I had trouble even really recording it. You'll see my recordings throughout this video are a little stuttery, and I apologize for that. When I do the highlight reel, you guys will see that, but I couldn't find a way to fix it. It played fine for me on my end. It was pretty solid frame rate, but my computer was sweating. Okay, and I don't have the top of line computer or anything, but it definitely didn't feel like it was commensurate with the graphic quality that we were dealing with. So that's the issues with the graphics, some technical optimization issues there. Now, when it comes to the audio really should be one of the most important parts. I shouldn't have to comment on the audio at all. They did a good job with the score. The licensed tracks that they had were great. They did a good job with background sounds and Foley. Foley is like background noises, footsteps, stuff like that. It's called Foley in film. I don't know if they call it something different in game design. But the Foley was good. My biggest issue is the recording of the dialogue. They made some serious issues, some very elementary production quality issues. They overmodulated any line where somebody's screaming, the mic peaks, and that basically means it records at 100% volume. And once you get to that peak, you lose detail in the recording. So like it can't, you lose a lot of the quality of the voice, and it took me out of so many emotional moments in this game. No! Dude, did you guys hear the audio peaking? Beat her with the broom. Bro. Oh, they're peeking at it again. And now she hit her brother too? What is this? Mike peeking again. Dude, it's so annoying. There was it's seriously a mistake that any audio professional should have immediately caught, should have done a retake. You actually can record what's called a safety track, which is you're recording 2 tracks at once, one at full volume and one at reduced volume, and that is in case of peaking, you can use the safety track. So really, there are so many things that they could have done to avoid all of these audio issues. They're very predictable. They knew in the script that Alex was going to be screaming at this part, and yet they still had, her overmodulated voices. So I found that to be really frustrating, and it really took me out of so many emotional moments. You'll probably see in my highlight reel that it really took me out of the game several points. So I think that that's a basic audio production quality thing that I shouldn't even have to mention. So this is a full price game, making a professional studio, AAA publisher, making this mistake. It's really not acceptable. So that it really brings it down several notches for me. So that's the audio quality issues. I just have to mention that before we get into the rest of it. So now we're gonna get into some spoilery stuff. We're gonna go in order of the game and just go into more detail about the story. So if you don't want to know more of that, now is your time to sign off. Or if you just want to listen to little bits as we get to the part you don't want to hear, you can sign off. But I appreciate you watching either way. So we'll just go back to chapter 1. And in this chapter, I feel honestly they did a great job setting up Gabe and the supporting cast, like I said. But I think they did a poor job at setting up Alex's power and ability in this first chapter. My issue with it is that if it wasn't Life is Strange, and Life is Strange is the hipster X-Men, as I've told people, it's the hipster version of X-Men, okay, and as the hipster version of X-Men, you go in expecting a superpower. But if this game stood on its own, and I didn't know about the superpower thing, I don't know that I would have exactly seen Alex as a reliable narrator when it comes to her abilities. They didn't do anything in the first chapter to really... They did later, but they didn't do anything in this first chapter to really show us that Alex is really telling the truth when it comes to her superpower. We just kind of have to take her word for it. And there's the moment where this guy Mac is jealous about Gabe spending time with his girlfriend Riley, and Mac is very angry. He starts attacking Gabe, and at that point Alex is overcome with rage, and she just starts beating the hell out of him. And this is the point where the game almost lost me at this point, because again, I wasn't sure if I believed Alex's power at this point. So saying like, oh, she couldn't control it, it's not her fault, I don't know that I buy that. And the game had already set up that she's had violent outbursts in the past. It's hard for me to just accept that without seeing it firsthand without seeing the evidence of it. So having her break down in that way without setting up, like in later chapters, like chapter 2, these are my favorite parts of the game where she's helping people through their memories and dealing with trauma from their past. And you get to see these parts where the environment changes depending on how that character sees it. The part with Eleanor dealing with her dementia and Alzheimer's was one of the most powerful parts of the game. You see the environment become jumbled, become chaotic, and letters are mixed out of order, numbers are mixed out of order. That was amazing, and once you see that, you believe her power. So I really feel like they should have had a moment like that in episode 1 to really establish her power before having this outburst segment, because this outburst, I was like, I don't know if I like Alex at this point. And you read about her fighting a bunch of people in the past, and also her kind of, if you read her messages, there are parts where she's like, she only reaches out to people when she needs something. she sleeps with this one guy and then leaves him on red, right? Like, he messaged her a bunch, she ghosts her, which is understandable. She wasn't ready for a relationship at that point. And that's all good. I accept that. But then she hits him back up when she needs something. I know, right? Listen, I need a place to crash again. Oh, wow, what a jerk. She's like, she has sex with him. She wasn't ready to move on. She wasn't ready for it yet. Understandable. But she ghosts him for a few months and then it's like, hey, I need something. That's not cool, man. So, at that point I was like, I don't know if I like Alex really. So the game almost lost me at that point where she had that outburst. I mean, when she's pummeling Mac like that, you can kill a person like that fairly easily without meaning to. So it was kind of hard for me to really just buy into that. Moving on, episode 2, we get some of those, like we got that funeral scene, amazing, emotional. We get that scene with Eleanor where we're helping her out. We get to see Mac being really paranoid. We get to help him too. So these scenes where you're using your power to help people are some of my favorite scenes in the game. I think they did a really great job setting it up. But so yeah, I really like that part. Backtracking back to the end of episode 1. Logically, I have some issues with how Gabe died. And my issue is that there's this blast going off that there's been notices in the town. It's been on the radio. Everybody knows about the blast that is going to happen. And then Ethan, who is Gabe's girlfriend's son, so essentially he is, he's basically the stepdad to this kid. So his stepson, for all intents and purposes, it is trying to break into the mine. Now, it's kids do dumb things, so, I'm not going to get on the kid for being like, oh, he should have known about the blast and stuff. That's understandable, he's a kid. But the adults, they made one call to Typhon's safety line, and then we find out later that they didn't do anything about it. They're trying to cover up a mine that, something bad that happened, right? But with a second blast at the same time, and they have inspections incoming, so they didn't want to delay it. Although the inspections apparently were a weeks further, so I don't see why they couldn't have waited a day, to avoid a lawsuit. That's how I would have viewed it. But the kid trying to break into the mine, and he is across the river from them, and he walked on a log that's perched between the two to get to this point. I think he fell or something. And they made the call to the safety line, but in reality, I mean, I've been in situations where there are missing people in the woods, and you get the authorities involved. And the adults in the room should all know that. Gabe and Ryan and even Alex should be smart enough to know that you should call the police. And if the police were contacted and the authorities were... Now, it's set up later that Typhon, it has the police on payroll and stuff. But if you... It would have been even better to show Typhon's corruption if they called the police. But the adult thing to do is to call the police. They do this whole thing where, like, they strap up, Alex in a rope and then have her walk across this log to the kid. And it's so dangerous and so stupid. You want to get the authorities involved and get proper machinery to do this safely. You wouldn't take this risk. It's a terrible idea. And this is the first time where they really established Alex's power, like I was saying. They did this cool thing where you get to see what the kid's afraid of. He's afraid of a monster that he sees in the river, and I like that part. It was cool. But Alex is like, I need to calm him down, and how she calms him down is by telling him that his delusion is real and that she sees it too. So dumb. But anyways, that after that is when the blast happens, and that whole thing is like, if they got the police involved, the safety line, the fact that they were trying to cover it up, it wouldn't have mattered as much. The police, they should have made multiple calls. I mean, at the end of the day, I feel like the whole situation wouldn't have happened if they had just called the police to begin with. And honestly, it doesn't really make a lot of sense that they didn't. So that's my issue with the circumstances surrounding Gabe's death. So along similar lines, I feel like a lot of the problems that they encountered were kind of their own making. When it comes to how to deal with Typhon, I don't know why nobody in the town wasn't telling Alex that she should be lawyering up at this point. Honestly, they have a wrongful death suit at the very least, if not criminal charges. When it comes to the Gabe's death, there's no doubt in my mind. Everybody should have been telling Alex, you gotta lawyer up, you gotta get this suit going. There's even a part where Charlotte, who was Gabe's girlfriend, right, and the son of Ethan, or the mother of Ethan, I can't talk today. The mother of Ethan, she was given a deal to sign the deal to get some money in exchange for not pressing any kind of lawsuit. And you have a choice whether or not to tell Charlotte to sign it. And I told her not to sign it, but my reasoning was different from the characters. My reasoning was that, no, you can get more money, almost definitely, if you sue them. So you shouldn't take their deal, you should bring a lawsuit. And honestly, Alex and Charlotte, they could have probably done this in a joint manner, and they almost certainly could have fundraised money online using GoFundMe or whatever the in-game equivalent would have been to mitigate the fact that they don't have a lot of money, right? So they could have certainly had the lawsuit going. I don't know why nobody in the cast said this. I guess there's no lawyers or anybody involved with any legal matters in the cast, and it really did make a lot of sense. So that's one thing where like most adults would know that. So I don't know who's writing this, but I don't know that they've ever been in similar situations, which is fine. Not that you should have to live through something like this, but I feel like it's common sense that you should lawyer up at this point. But it wasn't even an option to say that or to do anything about it. And then, there's a point later where you steal a USB flash drive from one of Typhon's employees to get some more information. And then Alex has the stupidest idea ever to take the USB flash drive that she stole. It's stolen property. She decides to take it to the police. And of course, they rightfully arrest her. They're trying to present the police as being the bad guys for arresting her. They absolutely did the right thing. She stole property. It's not okay to do that. If I was her friend, I would have told her, don't go to the police. They're just going to arrest you. Take that information. Take the flash drive. Copy the files onto your computer, okay? Get rid of the flash drive. Try to give it back to Diane if you can without letting her know that you took it. Do that, and then, just put it in the bar's lost and found or whatever. Do that. And then, you reach out to a journalist, because journalists have the First Amendment right to protect their sources. So you don't tell the journalist where you got the information. Just give them the files and then let them draw their own conclusions. That would have been the first step. It would have avoided her getting arrested. So again, that big conflict of her getting arrested was so predictable. Any adult knows that. You don't go to the police with stolen property. It's just stupid, okay? And I don't know. Alex is old enough to know better, as far as I'm concerned. So that part kind of drove me nuts. Again, it's the characters creating their own problems. It's the same thing with Gabe's death. So I did have that issue with it. And now Chapter 4, this is where we're going to get into some spoilery territory, so it might be time to bail if you're still listening and you haven't played it yet. So the end of Chapter 4, I knew from a mile away what was going to happen. It was supposed to be a big twist, but immediately I knew, oh, Jed is a double agent. When he started asking Alex questions and then says he's going to show her something, I was like, oh, she's going to. First of all, I know that they're recreating the formula from the first game, and Chapter 4 is when we found out about Jefferson, and when the thing happened with Chloe, and it happened at the exact same point in the story, so I just knew that was going to happen. So it was predictable to me, and I didn't particularly. I didn't find it very surprising.
I want to help you, but first, you have to let me know what's going on.
He's a spy.
Okay. What have I got to lose?
So that was probably a big issue. I don't know what they could have done to mitigate that and make it more surprising. But in general, yeah, that's how I felt about it. And I was just like, instantly I was like, oh, he's a double agent. He's going to kill her now. And again, I don't know. He's shooting at her at close range and he doesn't manage to kill her. I don't know. It's a little far-fetched that she survived that, but of course they have to have that for the story. So that's all fine. Now, I didn't really care for the flashback scenes in Chapter 5, like I said. I liked it when it started. It had that first one, the first little hallucination thing. But just these dream scenes dragging on, I didn't feel we really needed that information. We already knew about their situation. We knew their father was alive. So I don't know that we really needed that. That's my personal feeling. The story ground to a halt at that point, and I just wanted it. I just wanted it to wrap up, really. So yeah, I did like how it ended. That climactic scene of the council meeting. And it felt like everyone in the town was against her. Now, I know it's an option that you can convince everybody, but I didn't. I had most people not convinced. It was only Ducky and Steph that stepped up for me, and just that gloom feeling. Like, oh, nobody cares. It was like, oh my god, even Eleanor, dude? Fucking Eleanor? Oh my god, that's crazy. So, yeah, and that was a very, very powerful scene to me. And then when you finally have that one-to-one with Jed and making him break down like that and reveal his secrets. I don't know all the endings. I'm going to look into it after this video, but yeah, I was really moved by that scene. I thought it was great. And then the final send-off with Gabe on the roof was like, wow. Such a great conclusion. And him talking about the future and stuff. It was beautiful, man. Loved it. Loved it, loved it. So, yeah, that's my feelings on Life is Strange True Colors. Overall, a mixed bag, but definitely it's my favorite Life is Strange since the first one. Absolutely. I really liked Before the Storm as well. So, yeah, I really like this one. I think it's mostly very successful, other than the technical stuff. And just to throw it in here, they did a really amazing job at writing the journal. When you press the back button, I like to read all the stuff in the journal, and they had like a social network thing, and they had memories that you find that you read, and wow, those are really well written. I was extremely impressed with the quality of the writing in those segments. So I just want to throw that at the end there. So overall, it's a good game. I will say, just to add this at the end, the pricing for this game is too high. I think $60 for this game is too much. It has about the same amount of content as all the previous Life is Strange games, but it has a premium price for a reason I don't quite understand. I mean, it's definitely a jump in production value from the first game, but it's not really that much more production value than Before the Storm, than Life is Strange 2. So I don't feel that the rise in price was really justified. So I would not recommend you pay full price for this. I got 16 hours of gameplay out of it, but that's because I like to read every little thing. I like to hear I literally, like, when I hear side conversations, just two NPCs talking to each other, which they even all had names and had story arcs, so I was very impressed with that. The random NPCs you find all had story arcs that you could, many of them you could interact with, so I really like that. But I will say that, yeah, that's the only reason why it's so high. It's probably for most people like 10 hours or so. So it's a little short on content to pay $60 for. So that's just my opinion on it. I think the price is a little too high. I would recommend getting it on sale. And I think people who who haven't played Life is Strange, I would recommend the first one. But play the first one and then play this one if you're gonna play any. But if you don't like previous Life is Strange games, there's no reason for you to buy this. I think everything you don't like about the other games is gonna be represented here as well. So yeah, it's a very strong game. I'll give it like a 3 out of 5. It's a good game. And had some really emotional moments. Maybe a 4 if I'm feeling generous. So I did enjoy this, and that's my review, guys. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. And if you agree or disagree, or if I missed something, would love to hear from you. And give me a thumbs up if you like this video, and sub for more videos. Alright, that's it for everybody. Thanks for watching. Peace out.